Welcome to Saathwic Infotech, Day-9 AWS Learning Series. Today we are going to see about implementing Route 53 and enabling SSL to our web application. Okay, so we are going to use the same architecture where we have two EC2. Okay, let me complete this. So if you look at this architecture, today we are going to connect to the EC2 machines using our load balancer, application load balancer, whereas the users are not going to directly use the load balancer. So if you look at our yesterday session, users were directly using the application load balancer to access the EC2. Today we are going to just keep that ALB beside our Route 53. So basically people are going to click the domain. For example, today let's take Saathwic.com. So once I hit Saathwic.com, it's internally has to connect to ALB to balance the load between the EC2 servers. So that's what like we are going to do. And also along with that, we are going to see how to enable SSL, a secure connectivity with a padlock icon which is showing to the users, right? So okay, without further ado, let's go into our dashboard and see what are the services we have. Okay, I have created two EC2 instances, in two different zones. Okay, so that we will have our application load balancer to do a cross zone load balancing. Okay, and then we had a target group created for the same. Okay, let me just quickly check the status of the target group. Okay, in my target group, both the machines are healthy. So that my load balancer, I have an application load balancer called Saathwic ALB, which is going to balance the load between those two. That's where like I have marked like our target group as the destination. Okay, that's great. So let's go to the ALB now. Okay, my ALB is successfully balancing the load between the servers in both the zones A and B. Okay, great. So with this, we have left our session with yesterday. Okay, today we need to connect. Okay, basically we need to enable. Okay, till now it's not secure, right? So we need to enable this as secured one. So how do we do that, right? So in order to do that, basically we need a certificate. Okay, if we need a certificate, we need a valid domain name. Okay, how do we generate a certificate? If you want to generate a certificate in AWS, we have called AWS certificate manager, ACM. Okay, let's go to AWS certificate manager. From here we can request a certificate. Okay, I am going to request a public certificate. We can request a certificate only if you have a public fully qualified domain name. So how do we get the domain name? That's a question, right? So if you want a domain name, you can use third party domain providers. Okay, either you can use Godaddy or BigRock or whatever the domain providers you are familiar with. Okay, so usually I go with Godaddy and I have a domain already brought from Godaddy which does not have any content. So Saathwic.com is loading into Godaddy default web page. Okay, but AWS also provides you a way to get the domains. Okay, AWS has Route 53, a domain server, domain name server. Okay, where you can register your domain. For example, if you want to buy something like Saathwic DevOps.com, if I want to buy a Saathwic DevOps.com, I can check the availability and you can buy your domain from AWS too, because now AWS also act as a domain registrar. Okay, but generally I don't use AWS. The reason being is that okay, I see it's little bit costly to me. Okay, whereas in India, like we do have like multiple providers which provides you cheap and best domain services. So I have brought Saathwic.com from GoDaddy. Now I am going to show you how do I map this domain using Route 53. Okay, and access my ALB to do the load balancing. So that's what we are going to do. Let me make it very clear. Okay, let me open up this once again, guys. Okay, great. I don't want it. Okay. So let's assume that, right? So I have a Saathwic. So when user gives Saathwic.com, okay, before that, right? Okay, before that, let me explain something interesting. So what happens, for example, as a business person or as a user, if you want to host any website, you need two things. One is like domain, okay, and this domain should show up your page, right? Show the pages. So basically, this domain is the one which is going to show your web page. Okay, that's great. So how does this domain show your web page? You should have your website build file stored somewhere in the server. So this server is called your storage space. Basically, you will have a storage and a domain. Okay, so you guys have to understand this separately. Domain you buy from domain registrar. It can be Godaddy, BigRock, or AWS, anybody. And your storage server, basically it's a web server hosted in the domain providers. So basically many domain providers provide you the storage also based on yearly charges. So if I buy a domain from Godaddy and if I buy a storage also from Godaddy, okay, the mapping will be very seamless. If I buy a domain from Godaddy and if I buy a storage from someone else, the storage, basically the server, the web server, basically the storage is nothing but your web server. This can be from anyone, right? So you can buy it from BigRock or it can be with AWS also. So in our case, the exact scenario we are going to do. So we have a domain from GoDaddy and we have a web server built on AWS so that my domain will interact with this web server to show my websites. Hope I made it clear. Great. With this understanding, let's go here. So I have a domain called Saathwic.com. Now I need to have a web server. My web servers are available and the load balancers are created. So now how do I ensure my Saathwic.com domain connects to Route 53 to show up this ALB as a first step? Okay, let's forget about HTTP or HTTPS, whether it's secure or non-secure. Let's try to connect this domain to Route 53. How do I do that? So if you go to Route 53, so the first thing, either you can buy here. If you buy a domain here, it will be very seamless, but I am not going to do it as because of costlier. So, but the steps are same wherever you buy the domain. Okay, go to Route 53. Why it's very slow? Maybe yeah, yeah. So if you go to Route 53, you will see something like hosted zone. Click on hosted zone. See, hosted zone is nothing but, okay, where you create all the mappings. So when you say Saathwic.com, to which web server or to which group of server or to which network I need to route your connectivity. Basically, it's a query mapping, right? So you type something on browser. How does this know to which server it has to connect? Whether you hosted your server with AWS or you hosted your server with BigRock or you hosted your server with GoDaddy. So all these things have been defined by hosted zone. Okay. So let me create a hosted zone here. So my domain name is Saathwic.com. Okay, so this is used to route to my web server. Okay, so is that the public hosted zone? Yes, mine is a public one. I am not using any private within VPC or anything. So it's a internet connectivity. So I use public hosted zone. Let me create the hosted zone. So whenever you create a hosted zone, okay, the Saathwic.com has been created. Whenever you create a hosted zone, it has its own underlying details. What are those? So basically it tells to which server, whenever a request, okay, Saathwic.com comes in, where should I route this request? Okay, so for that there is a specific group of servers are maintained. So those group of servers are nothing but named servers. So for if I want to connect to a resources in AWS, AWS create its own name servers. So these are my AWS name servers. Let me copy it. Let me open up a notepad. Okay, I have copied my name servers here. Let me go to my domain registrar. Okay, Saathwic, sorry, Gmail, Godaddy, manage your domain. Okay, now I have bought a domain called here, and it says connected and everything. Let me click on manage. Domain, domain settings. Guys, these are like kind of an extra thing which I am doing. So don't really worry about all these things. Okay, go to DNS. So if you come to DNS for my Saathwic.com, there are few details already added. Okay, there are few details already added. Okay, but I don't want these details to be, because it connects to GoDaddy. So let's go to the name server of my account Saathwic.com. It points to a different name service, because my Saathwic.com, whenever I give it, it goes to GoDaddy by default. How it goes to GoDaddy by default? Because of this name servers. So let me change this name server, because I don't want to go to GoDaddy. It has to go to AWS. So I need to use AWS name servers. Let me change it. I will use my own server name server. So let me copy the name servers. So there are 4 name servers given by AWS. Ignore that dot. Okay, dot we don't need. So add name server. Add name server. Great. Okay guys, so I have updated my name servers. Okay, so this update, see it says right, your request in progress. This update may take some time. Meanwhile, what I do is, let me pause this session. Will resume once it's online back, so that my Saathwic.com will be down for some time. Okay. Okay guys, so now if you look at, when I hit Saathwic.com, it says page not reached. Means that the domain registration, the name server is getting pointed to AWS. So you can just validate that from here too. Let me refresh this page. DNS name server. You will see the AWS name servers got updated. So means that now Saathwic.com can connect to Route 53. Okay, the first step of it. So whenever people hit Saathwic.com, it can come to Route 53. Now there is a second step. So now Route 53 needs to connect to our load balancer. So that's the intention, right? So we have a load balancer here. So whenever the request comes to Saathwic.com into Route 53, it has to route the loads to our load balancer. So how do we do that, right? So if you to do that, go and create a record. Okay, our the query or the record name is going to be Saathwic.com. So now it says record type route traffic to an IPv4 address. So if I want to route the traffic to my EC2 directly, I can do that. But ideally it's of no use, because we are not load balancing. Generally people don't recommend that. Or to some AWS resource. Okay. So which AWS resource I am going to route? I am going to route to the resource load balancer. So let me go to maybe duplicate this page. Go to services, EC2, sorry, not EC2, load balancer, because I need to take the load balancer DSN. So if you go to load balancer, this is the DNS name, right? So copy this DNS name, go back to Route 53, select this alias. Okay. So it says choose the endpoint. So which endpoint we are going to use? We are going to use alias to our application load balancer. Basically application or classic load balancer option is available here. You can do network load balancer, S3 website endpoint, everything, but we are using application load balancer. Probably the next session I will cover how to do with the network load balancer also. So let's select the application load balancer. So region, so in which region your load balancer is. So if you select this load balancer URL, you will see like US East 1. So our load balancer is in US East 1. So US East 1, North Virginia is there. So what is your load balancer? So here it should show your load balancer name. Saathwic ALB is our load balancer name. Saathwic ALB. Okay. So let us select that load balancer. So the routing methodology, we are going to use simple routing. There are many more like weighted, geolocation, latency, failover and everything. Let us discuss those other options in detail in our upcoming sessions. But for now, let's have a simple routing policy. And it also says that evaluate target health. Basically, it will check whether the health of the load balancer is available or not basically. So let's create this record. Okay, great. So what happens now is we have a domain and we have a route 53. So now our route 53 also knows where to route your request when someone comes in. So now when Saathwic.com has been requested, okay, it may take some more time. Basically the refresh has to happen. When someone pings Saathwic.com, it comes to route 53 and from route 53 it navigates to this particular load balancer. Okay, so from here I will just pause this session, means that okay, it will take few more minutes to get that populated because the validation and everything has to be done. Okay, once after that, once this is online, probably like I will show that it's taking some time. Okay, let me pass it here. Okay, things are done now. So if you look at like I think some cache issue or something as I was doing multiple setup changes with Saathwic.com. So if you go to my incognito, okay, if you go to incognito and type Saathwic.com, okay, now we see the load is getting balanced between two nodes. Okay, great. So but one more thing which you notice, now we have done the steps. We have a domain. From domain we connected to route 53. From route 53 we sent the request to our load balancer, application load balancer, using HTTP. Okay, we are not used HTTPS yet. The secure transport has not been done yet, so that's why you see as not secure here. Okay, so how do I do a secure transport? Let's first go to our load balancer. Okay, if you go to your load balancer, you have something like listener. Till now we have only HTTP listener, so let's add a new listener to it. So what is the listener type? HTTPS. So I have changed the listener to HTTPS 443. That's fine. So where should I forward the request? It should go to my target group, TG Saathwic. Okay. Then here comes the secure listener settings. Okay. So ELB security policy, and also it asks for enable a certificate. So I am going to select ACM. Do I have any certificate? No. So let me create a new certificate. So request a certificate. So it will be like request public certificate. My domain name is Saathwic.com. So I'm going to use DNS validation method and the algorithm for certificate generation. Let it be 2048. So request a certificate. So let me refresh this. So I have got a certificate which is issued by Amazon and it's still pending validation. Okay, let me go into the certificate. So let's come to basically this pending validation has to change to available or valid. Okay, so now we see something like create record in route 53. So how does it validates the SSL, right? So the SSL validation happens between the route 53. So it wants to create a record in route 53 to do that validation. So that let me go to route 53 first. So if you go to route 53 under hosted zone, Saathwic.com is there. So for Saathwic.com right now 3 records are there. One is for load balancer, one is for those below 2 are like default which created along with hosted zone creation. So now if I create a record in route 53, this particular record ACM validation, AWS certificate manager validation.aws will get added. So let me create a record. Okay, the record got created. Let me double check it. So a new CNAME has added. So in order for the new CNAME to take effect, it will take few more minutes. Okay, so that your certificate became successful. The validation should become successful. So it says successfully created, but still the validation is pending. So it has to be like successfully validated. Meanwhile, what I can do is let me go to EC2 again. Let's go back to our old same story of load balancer. Okay, where is the load balancer? Okay, sorry, I just used the same window. So whatever the changes which we did might have gone. So let me open our ALB. So let me add a listener. HTTPS. Select the target group. Okay. Now, okay. Still the certificates are not shown. So basically like here the newly created certificate should show. So probably once the certificate is valid, it's going to show us for here. So until it became valid, let's wait for some more time. Meanwhile, I will pass this recording. Okay. So after adding the record to route 53, in few minutes of time, okay, we got the status as issued. Okay, great. So now our certificate has been issued for that particular route 53 domain. Okay, which is nothing but Saathwic.com. Okay, let's go and create the listener, right? So here, let us refresh. Okay, once we refresh, you should see the certificate. So that's where like it's more important, right? So once you select the certificate and add, okay, now your load balancer is capable of handling HTTPS requests as well. Okay, now let's go back. Okay, did I save it? Okay, no save. Fine. So let me go back to my incognito mode. Okay, let me type HTTPS Saathwic.com. Now you see that, right? I am seeing a padlock icon which is secured, and it's also routing me to both the zones. You see both A and B now. So this is how you need to enable HTTPS traffic for your website. And one more thing we have missed here. So if you do HTTP colon Saathwic.com explicitly, still it shows not secure. Why? Okay, that question is there, right? So if you go and look at our load balancer configuration, in load balancer, HTTP is also routing us to our end server using our target groups. So basically, whenever user enters HTTP, it has to route them to our HTTPS traffic. Okay, so we need to update this listener settings. So let's manage and edit this listener. So whenever user give HTTP, it should not forward it to target group. It should redirect to the URL. So it should redirect to HTTPS 443. Okay, either you can give your full URL also. If you want to redirect to some URL like either for login page or anything, you can do it here, but I don't want to do something. So if people comes with HTTP, let them reroute to HTTPS 443. Okay, let me save these changes. Okay, so probably this might take a minute or so to get refreshed. Let me see. Okay, it's added. Let me see if it's getting effect immediately or it may take few minutes. Let me go here. Let me refresh. Okay, now I am typing http colon Saathwic.com. So even though if I type http, it makes me to move to secure zone. Okay, you see the padlock icon. If you click on this, you will see https. So by this way, whenever user even give http or https, your traffic is always getting routed to https. Okay, hope this helps, guys. Okay, please feel free to comment if you have any doubt. If you like this video, I would recommend to share with your friends and give a thumbs up, which motivate us to create much more videos. Thanks for watching.